today. Oh, that's good. Good morning, everybody. This is Steve Attarian. I'm here with Dr. Steve Wilson. We're live at the Christ Center in Grand Junction, Colorado, trying to get positioned here so we're both on camera and able to be seen by you. That shows too much light in the background. Scoot over close to me here, Dr. Steve, Dr. Wilson.
Close enough.
There we go. Yeah. Uh-oh. You don't want that. I'll fix that real quick. Let's just turn it back this way. It's strange. Very strange. We're backwards. Good morning. How are you this morning, Steve?
I'm fine, thank you, Stephen.
Wonderful.
And you?
I am beautiful. Thank you so much.
Beautiful to stretch.
Well, no, for me, I'm blessed. How's that? Is that even better?
I'll buy that.
All right. So we're here to talk today about ATP, energy without sugar, without stimulants. You know, we are definitely affected in this country with how much sugar we intake on a daily basis. I heard a survey a while ago that it used to be we had 2 or 3 tablespoons of sugar a day in our diet, and now we're up to almost 2 pounds of sugar a day or something silly in our diet every day. You know the numbers. You're a statistician better than me, Steve. But if we're using sugar to get energy, we're not using good nutrition. And, you know, we're mixing that with a cup of strong coffee. And this is tea, by the way.
This is coffee.
I brought tea today.
Yeah.
I'm trying to reduce the acidity of my system, so coffee's kind of acidic. But Steve, talk about sugar and its use to create energy versus what God intended when He created us.
Wow. Sugar, simply put, is a stimulant. It's a chemical. It's been removed from its natural sources, and they've made literally a chemical from it. And in that, we're talking about stimulating the adrenal glands. And when you stimulate the adrenal glands, it's kind of like having a car with a battery and an engine. And instead of using the engine for what it does, you use the battery to run you down the road. And in doing so, then it has to be charged up and you have to stop. So when you address the adrenal system, the thing that comes about from the sugar usage is kind of a unique thing. It's called immunosenescence.
Spell that.
Can't.
Oh. Immunosenescence.
Yeah. Senescence is a word meaning cell death. So as you begin to use the adrenals to run your body from adrenaline, then all at once these 2 little things are about the size of your thumb become really huge. And in doing so, they lose their immune system.
You're speaking of the adrenal glands?
The adrenal glands. And so what people have figured out to do, a way to do this, is they use that system to drive their engine, their car, down the road instead of using the engine over here, which is designed to do just that. Is that an easy enough analogy?
It definitely doesn't make sense to me.
Now, in doing so, we have a nation that is very compromised in their immune system. So just to put those 2 words together, when your immune system, the cells in it die, they become very toxic. And then you invite disease in to live. So that means you're going down a road with a system that can't defend itself, and therefore we're subject to every little disease, particularly fatigue. I consider fatigue a disease.
Well, there's chronic fatigue systems.
You bet.
And some people are dealing with that on a regular basis.
Oh, it's day in and day out. So that means we got to have this as a stimulant. When we use the sugar as a stimulant, it parses, and it's just about a 50-50 split. But part of it goes to fructose and goes through the liver and is cycled back and made it to triglycerides. And first of all, it's considered visceral fat, and it covers the organs. That's the worst thing that can happen. But then
let's
slow down.
Slow down. So we went from triglycerides to visceral fat.
Well,
and I have an issue with visceral fat. I know that in my midsection, as a 47-year-old man, I struggle to lose weight in my belly, my gut. And I know that doctors look at good at triglycerides level, the level of the triglycerides in my system, and I know that is some form of fat. So could you just tell everybody out here, what are triglycerides? What is visceral triglycerides versus maybe a healthy triglyceride?
Well, triglycerides are fats.
Fats.
Okay. So what happened? Just imagine this: we got a cup. I've got a cup of coffee, and this holds 8 ounces, shall we say?
Right.
And if you try to put 10 ounces into this, it overflows.
Right.
Now it's only going to hold 8. That's much like the blood. A man that's about 170 to 180 pounds only can hold 7 grams of glucose in the blood.
Glucose being
sugar.
Sugar.
Okay. So when you dump more sugar into the system, the body looks at it, I can't put it in there. So it parses, and this thing takes off in this situation. Part of that sugar that you just consumed in synthetic sugar goes to the liver. It's in the form of fructose, and it's made into triglycerides, and it comes back and is stored in the fat around the stomach. The other part, which is the long-term nasty part of this, goes through, and now we have to build insulin to deal with it. Okay. It's the way the body functions. You put sugar in it, and it's got to contend with this sugar. So in this particular situation, when you overflow the ability of your insulin factory, the pancreas, to build the insulin to deal with the sugar you just gave it, that it bypasses it. The next step in this biochemistry is it goes into what's known as AGEs, advanced glycation in products. And those are particularly nasty in that part of that turns into what's known as amyloid beta plaque.
Oh, plaque that builds up on our arteries.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
But in the worst scenario, Steve, where dementia is showing up in so many people, it finds itself coating the inside of the capillaries in the systems that lubricate the brain, if you will. And if you can't get oxygen to the brain because the blood molecule is really much larger than that hole, and if you shrink that hole, you can't get the oxygen and nutrients to the brain, then you have senescity, and the brain begins to die.
Okay, let's just take a quick step back, and I understand we just went very quickly through the process the body does when we ingest sugar, especially too much sugar. You use a term called synthetic sugar, and I'm thinking of this grapefruit I have here that I just put in front of your face. And
That's right.
There's sugar in here. This is sugar that was created naturally. I believe this is an organic one, but nonetheless, it was created by God and the natural processes of things, versus what you mentioned as synthetic. So that's one thing I'd like to discuss. The second thing is, you said insulin deals with sugar. I'd like you to go in a little bit more detail of why we have insulin and what it does to sugar, please.
Insulin is a transport agent into the cell.
Oh, that's good to know.
Well, it's one of those mechanisms that you have to have.
Okay.
So when we build insulin, what we're trying to do is get the receptors on the cell to accept the sugar. Now, the sugar that you're showing there is a complex. It's attached to something. It's natural. So the body takes time to reduce that to the sugar that you're looking at. But a simple sugar that we're discussing, one that's processed, is void of the fiber that surrounds that sugar, so it's instantly into the blood.
Okay.
And the body takes a look at it, and it reacts to that. And all at once you have this serious spike, and you have a dump of insulin into the bloodstream, and that sugar also has a method of dissipating very rapidly. So now you have an abundance of insulin and no sugar. And
Which
that's
the
when
insulin does not dissipate quickly.
no, and there it sits in the blood, and that's when people that perhaps are diabetic, if they have a surge of insulin, they tend to black out.
Okay. And I mean, we know that diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, is a huge issue that a lot of people deal with. My dad deals with it. His mother, his sister, a lot of people I know deal with diabetes. And the reaction to sugar now makes a little more sense. So if we take in a complex sugar that's attached to natural fibers that comes from our food, it's just a real God-made sugar, and not something that's processed and bleached and killed and mass-produced. Into our system, that complex sugar takes longer to break down. So the natural way our body, that God created us, is it releases insulin. Our body digests the sugar, it breaks it up, it sends it through the blood, the insulin deals with it on its own time, and at the end, we have plenty of energy from natural nutrients to go out and play golf, or chase our kids around the living room, or spend time fishing, or walking up to Liberty Cat.
Or just breathing.
Or breathing is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or we take a simple sugar, which is refined, and dump it into our system. Our body reacts. It says, we got to deal with this, creates a lot of insulin. The insulin goes in, and it processes it much faster than it should. There's lots of insulin left over in our system, and it's empty. So that insulin is not transporting nutrients or sugar, energy into the cell. It's just in our blood.
Yeah, no, let's go back a little bit and let's put another definition to sugar. George Washington School of Medicine, they were I believe the first ones that I read that come out and said sugar in simple form metabolizes to an opiate-like substance. So let's just put that in some kind of a philosophical position, may we?
Sure.
All right. In our world, depression and stress is a huge problem. People are not sure what's happening. Life is kind of got its ups and downs. And if you were having one of those, why wouldn't you go find some sugar if you could deal with depression by giving you an opiate-like substance?
I would eat for comfort and not for nutrition.
That's exactly it. Along with that, you get a little burst in energy. Without energy, the vast majority of us just sit down and pout. Yep, you give it that.
You're making fun of me, and I don't like it. You don't love me, Steve.
Well,
I'm going to go have a candy bar.
that's pretty nicely what it
Ben
is.
and Jerry's, that's what I want. Ben and Jerry's.
It's huge. It's huge in the amount of sugar that it carries. All ice creams. Plus, many of them have propylene glycol.
Okay, we're not going to go into all the bad things around in the world. Right. Today, we're talking about sugar, stimulants, and their effect on our system versus good old-fashioned nutrients and energy that comes from food, and the energy production of ATP in the cell that is natural and normal, that gets us up and gets us moving, and is the system that God created. It's the engine that He built within us. And instead of dumping good gas in it on a daily basis, we're dumping in a alcohol and sugar-induced. I say alcohol just because I think of gas that has alcohol in it, burns faster.
Mm-hmm.
So burns hotter, and so my analogy is not worth diddly squat this morning. I better have some great.
Your analogy is just perfect because that's how a car. If you imagine your body and this little thing that you just brought up, the mitochondria, as the engine of the body, it builds the energy.
And the mitochondria lives within the cell.
In the cell.
And it's the engine or the energy production within the cell.
Right.
And we have how many cells in our body?
Trillions.
Trillions. That's a big number.
Yep, it is a huge number, and within each and every cell, there isn't one mitochondria. There's 1,000 in just an ordinary skin cell. And in the heart, they're upwards to 5,000. So you can see you've got an incredible power plant building energy, and it takes fuel, and it takes a combination of things to build this fuel called ATP.
Okay.
And the science of this, it is so magnificent, and it is so complex that it's been referred to in science as irreducibly complex. And that should cause anybody that's an evolutionist just all kinds of issues, because that world begins with simplicity and grows to complex. And here we have this element that is so complex, and it triggers into building energy when you line up these phosphate molecules, and 3 of them, and 1 breaks off. And in that bond, all of this energy is created, and then that phosphate circles around and reattaches. And that happens millions of times per second, per mitochondria. Think about that.
Well, I'm sure there'd be a lot of zeros on that number.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
And if you do me a favor, please don't tell our current president what comes after trillion, because he'll spend it.
Just more down.
What you're saying here makes sense to me. I followed this in the past, but let's just say, we have sitting outside the cell in our bloodstream, pumping through our bodies. We have a stimulant, coffee, caffeine, simple sugar, processed sugar is also a stimulant, and methamphetamine and other stimulants is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about nutrient stimulants, correct?
I hope so.
Not chemical stimulants.
No chemicals.
So, we're talking about a stimulant like caffeine in our system. We're feeling a little down and dragging, and we just need a little energy to get going in the morning. So we drink a little, for me, a big cup of coffee. And so we're trying to get that energy, the energy that, our creator amazingly made this cell with thousands of mitochondria in it, with this natural reaction that breaks off a phosphate from a triphosphate molecule. That energy reaction fires up our cell, gives us energy. What happens when we bring in a stimulant instead of that natural process that God gave us?
It bypasses the mechanism. And it's, I was raised on a farm ranch, and we used cattle prods. And what you've just done is you've just brought out a cattle prod to a poor old tired cell, and you jab it. And it lurches forward.
Okay.
And there's a time when it just quits lurching, and you can stick it all you want. Until we understand that one little science, we've got to return to building ATP. We've got to component.
How do we build ATP without, in this day and age, we go to the grocery store, we're busy people, we've got stress in our lives. Some of us are dealing with depression. There are these factors in the world. Now, I believe that we are given the ability within, and through faith we can deal with all of those things. With God, all things are possible. But a lot of us are just hit a stage where it is easier in this day and age to buy a candy bar and a cup of coffee than it is to go make a good healthy meal.
And at the end of that particular road is disease.
I don't want disease.
Okay, then you got to change what you're doing here. It's called discipline.
Did you read that quote that I sent you last night?
No.
It was a good friend of mine, Dominic, on Facebook that I'm going to see if I can pull it up here, because what you just said, it is truly a beautiful quote that a friend of mine just sent out on Facebook yesterday. And That's not it. That's not it either. Well,
Can you not remember?
basically it was discipline and instant gratification are both decisions. And we make a decision for discipline and we get joy, but it's put off till later. And when we have instant gratification, make a decision and we get that joy right now. But I'm not saying it right. His quote was beautiful, and I'm messing it all up.
That's all right.
Talk for a minute while I find it.
Okay, I think that let's go back to some of the fundamentals that I was raised in. Brought up in a very fundamentalist, evangelical, Hebrew mindset. And that gave me a wonderful foundation. And there was a time when I functioned under that quite well. And then I got into my 20s and I chose another route. I made that decision to go another way. And in that cost an awful lot to me because I thought I could short circuit a number of venues. When we have discipline, when we're dealing with the precepts that we are designed to work under, we have freedom. Always discipline. Drive your car 70 miles an hour in a 30-mile zone, you go to jail. If you live by the instruction,
if you get caught. Because you could do it several times and not get caught.
But you will get caught eventually. Somewhere down the road, either an accident or something of that nature will take its toll. So
not to me. It's not going to happen to me.
Well,
it might happen to you.
It has.
But, and I could stand up here and show that my 20 years of
discipline,
lack of discipline, 35 plus years of lack of discipline, because I was healthy in high school as an athlete. You're more than 20 years my senior, and you've changed your life, decided to choose discipline after many years of not choosing discipline because of your desire for the future. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's more than fair. There comes a time when you just need to take a hard look at who you are and what you are and say, am I proud of what I've built? The house that you live in is the one you've been building. Now, brand new day.
Brand new today.
You're going to build a house.
I am renewed today. Romans 12:2.
In 10 years, you're going to move into that house. And if you're starting from where you are and continue doing what you're doing, you're going to have a bigger house.
Well, I don't know. That analogy looks pretty good. Now, let me go to this quote of the day. My friend Dominic Jones put this on Facebook. Quote of the day: the disciplined and the undisciplined both do exactly what they feel like doing. The difference is one sacrifices the present for the feeling in the future, and one sacrifices the future for the feeling in the present. Okay? So we know that if we take our time, we pack a healthy lunch, we have a healthy meal, that tomorrow we're going to feel way better than if we don't take that few minutes, we're not disciplined. The freedom that we have to get up and go and do what we want when we want comes with energy and health. If we don't have energy and health, then we don't have freedom. We don't have freedom to do what we want. We're locked to that couch or to that doctor's appointment or to that lack of desire, lack of passion.
But Stephen, that definition implies the being it implies that it's taking something away from you by having to do something to prepare for the future. And it was just yesterday in our Bible study. Is portrayed as having things that you didn't have before. Okay. I let that kind of just ruminate in the room, and then tossed out this possibility, that the journey that I'm on is one of the most exciting journeys I've ever been on. This is, Paul, and I think in a frustrated moment because they kept implying that Paul was legalistic in the book of Galatians. And he finally addressed it and said, Paul, who are you really? He said, I am a trust-obedient, messianic Jew. He laid it right on the line. Trust-obedient. Then, as you read some of the rabbinical writings, it comes out that Paul said that because he said the giver of the information, meaning Messiah, was trustworthy. So if you and I looked and I said, meditated on what I, and I toward your immediately. Now the immediate part was slow.
And you're quoting Psalms 112 or 119.
Yeah, 119. And I want to continue this because at the end of that it says, "Your instructions are my counselors." How beautiful is that? When you begin to understand what the difference in my life, and it only took a few years to undo what I did.
You know, you were not real good to yourself for a lot of years. How long did it take to get back into that health point?
I'm still working on it, but I've got 3 in it right
Now, and you're 70 plus years old.
Yeah.
And how many times a week do you hike a couple of miles up into the national park here in Grand Junction and jog? We won't say run because I know there's family members that will get upset if they hear that. Jog down the mountain after you reach the top.
Now, I put in 3 to 4 once a day.
You know, I just happened to glance down. We read before we started here Proverbs 8, and Proverbs 8:34 says, "Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my doors." Blessed is the man who listens to me. You know, so that instruction, that discipline, we all know. You know, discipline has a word of, you know, that the picture in our mind that word creates is different for everyone. For me, I picture my principal's office with a paddle hanging on the wall, and I'm going to be disciplined. Versus choices I make throughout the day, all of those choices that affect my day, my life, my relationships, and even my faith. Those choices, that's where discipline lies, really, in all of those choices.
Well, you're given choices. Speaking of that word, I had a choice to come down here or not today, as did you. And we're making a choice to literally put our opinions and our thoughts, you know, out front of however many people observing this, to literally have it taken apart and looked at, and we want to do that freely. But the point is, in the book of Proverbs, in chapter 1, it says that I want you to be intelligently disciplined. And that really is a mind-boggling statement because I know a lot of people that are disciplined, but in the wrong area. The information that they have is wrong. And on our side, intelligently disciplined, for what reasons? First, to be right. The next verse right under that says, I want you to be right. And that brings to play justice. I want you to be just. Then I want you to be fair. When we put that right in front of a friend, I am right. I've taken my position from Scripture. Now, we've walked away as a nation from these principles and these concepts and these instructions. And look at where we've got ourselves. Not only are we physically a wreck, but we are emotionally disturbed. And we are chasing some of the most evil concepts the world has ever known. And we're watching it on display no matter where we go.
Lust, covetousness, pride,
Drunkenness, murder. Yeah, you just seen it. And when we get into the movement that you and I are moving toward, in terms of understanding the fundamental aspect of health is through producing energy. When we're energized, we are mentally on top of things. We're physically, we present ourselves better. And someone says, it says to you and I, because of your health, who is your God? What an interesting concept of if you're constantly dragging, and you've seen it in sales, Steve, and, speaking of sales, if a person is not energized, he really can't be a good representative of the company he works for.
No, I mean, when you're healthy, you're radiant. And what do we say, as Christians that are attempting to disciple to others? We want to shine our light on the world. We want to have Christ's light shine through us. Well, that radiance can come from within with good health. And we're running out of time here, Steve, so I'm going to kind of close out by saying next week we're going to follow up with this discussion of good nutrition through good decisions and discipline does bring freedom. It does bring radiance from within. And we're going to talk about health. And health in the 4 facets that we're going to continually talk on, we're going to continually discuss, is health financially, health physically, health emotionally, and health spiritually.
Okay.
We started off with health physically this morning in our discussion of energy and ATP and good sugar versus bad sugar, complex sugar versus simple sugar, and refined sugar. We talked about a little bit of the effect of stimulant on our system versus God's way of creating energy, which is with ATP. That was an amazing creation. Next week we're going to continue with health discussed through emotional, physical, spiritual, and financial. So did I talk all 4? Did I touch anything?
I think you did.
This is Dr. Steve Wilson. This is walktosuccess.com, where the smallest step in the right direction is a step to your well-being. And may God be with you, and thank you for signing in today. And yes, Steve, it's going to take a minute to